بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. القارعة ما القارعة القارعة ما القارعة وما أدراك ما القارعة يوم يكون الناس كالفراش المبثوث يوم يكون الناس كالفراش المبثوث وتكون الجبال كالعهن المنفوش يوم يكون الناس كالفراش المبثوث وتكون الجبال كالعهن المنفوش فأما من ثقلت موازينه فهو في عيشة راضية فأما من ثقلت موازينه فهو في عيشة راضية وأما من خفت موازينه فأمه هاوية وما أدراك ما هي وما أدراك ما هي نار حامية صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على
بسند صحيح عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا أجد في بدني ضعفا، فقلت له أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف. فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغتيني به. فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به، وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه. فقلت عليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله. فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء فقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه. فقلت عليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء فقال السلام عليك يا جداه، السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له وعليك السلام يا أخي يا وسيي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء فقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ بي رسول الله لترفي الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن صالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، واذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي، إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا رب ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا رب أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فحبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك بعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لعجلكم ومحبتكم وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله عليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي إذن والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي ثانيا يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم محموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي إذن والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة.
So, yesterday I mentioned lots of doctors that I had brought up the issue of very much the function of the heart. And I thought I would just say a few more things about it today. So, as Dr. Siddharth mentioned in his talk, there is a hadith al-Qudsi in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Neither my earth nor my heavens could contain me, whilst the heart of my believing servant does contain me." So in a spiritual understanding of the cosmology of the self, the heart, and I'm not talking about the organ, the heart, it's very much a spiritual heart, which is embedded very much somewhere within our personal consciousness, acts as a reflector of divine qualities or attributes, which are prevalent at all times and in all spaces. So the function of the heart is to reflect this divine light or attributes within us. And within this divine light, you have all these magnificent qualities and attributes such as kindness, generosity, mercy, compassion, tolerance, and so on. These attributes and qualities are very much inscribed within us and gifts, as gifts from our Lord. And they're located very much in the higher realms of our individual selves. And this is why we have this prophetic saying, in which when we find ourselves doing something good, it becomes incumbent on us to attribute this to God. And when we find ourselves doing something bad, we must take full blame and accountability. This is because there's only goodness in our souls. And if that goodness is not being reflected, it's because our hearts have been tarnished in some way. Rumi reflects this as a rust developing on the heart, which needs regular cleaning and polishing. And the word in Arabic for heart is qalb, and it comes from the same root words as the word qalaba, which means to rotate. And if you apply this to the function of the heart works in its most optimal way when it's able to rotate without attachments. And if it's attached, it means the heart is not going to rotate as well as it should, which means our behavior somehow deviates. So what is the remedy? So the remedy is to be in constant awareness of our thoughts, our intentions, our behavior. And then there's a remedy to engage in selfless acts, helping, compassion, forbearance, dhikr, constant remembrance of our Creator, and other things which help us take us into the higher realms of ourselves. And when we do this, our heart starts rotating at a higher efficiency. So when I act with an attribute of generosity, if I'm being generous, that is not me, that is very much the light of Al-Karim within me, reflecting through my heart. And if I'm mean or greedy or selfish, that's because that light of Al-Karim within me is being blocked by my own self, my own selfishness, my ego, and that tarnishes the heart. And perhaps the greatest illness or defect that we perhaps all collectively suffer from is this inability to understand that all goodness only comes from God. And instead of attributing this to our Creator, we assume that its qualities actually belong to us. I just wanted to share a saying of Muhammadi Trust on the heart. Bismillah. Surely wanting is a trial, and having a sickness of the body is more difficult to bear than indigence. And having a sickness of the heart is more difficult to bear than having a sickness of the body. Surely being very wealthy is a blessing, and having a healthy body is better than being very wealthy. And having awe of Allah in the heart is better than having a healthy body. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So I'll just read from Sahifa Sajidiyya, Imam Zainab bin alayhi salam. This is Dua Yawm al-Ahad, supplication for Sunday. In the name of God, the All-Merciful, the All-Compassionate. In the name of God, from whom I hope for nothing but bounty, and from whom I fear nothing but justice. I rely only upon His word, and I cling only to His cord. In Thee I seek sanctuary, O possessor of pardon and good pleasure, from wrong and enmity, from the changes of time and the recurrence of sorrows, from the striking of mishaps, and from the expiration of my term, before preparation and readiness. From Thee I seek guidance, to that wherein is righteousness and being set right. From Thee I seek help in that which is linked to success and favorable response. Thee I beseech for the garment of well-being and its completion, and for the covering of health and its permanence. I seek refuge in thee, my Lord, from the goadings of the Satans, and I seek protection in thy sovereignty from the injustice of the sovereigns. So accept my past prayers and fasting, and make my tomorrow and what is after better than my present hour and my today. Exalt me and my clan and my people, and protect me in my waking and my sleeping, for thou art God, the best guardian, and thou art the most merciful of the merciful. O God, I am quit before thee, and on this day of mine, and on all Sundays which follow it, of associating others with thee and of heresy. And I devote my supplications sincerely to thee, addressing myself to thy response. So bless Muhammad and the house of Muhammad, the best of thy creation, the summoner to thy truth. Exalt me with thy exaltation, which is never made to suffer loss. Protect me with thy eye, which never sleeps, and seal my affair by cutting me off from everything but thee, and my life with forgiveness. For thou art the all-forgiving, the all-compassionate. Allahumma salli ala
شمس پیش خدمت حضرت محمد کی شان مقام کرم اکبر نے سفارا کیا اپنے رفقا کو اکبر نے سفارا کیا اپنے رفقا کو اقبال حشم دبدباؤ صبر و رضا کو اور میں منا سونپا ہے ایک مرتبہ مل کر بلند آواز سے دعا کریں۔
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد۔
جن کی الفت کا چراغ ہم نے جلا رکھا ہے، جن کی الفت کا چراغ ہم نے جلا رکھا ہے، بس انہیں ہستیوں کو دل میں چھپا رکھا ہے، جن کی الفت کا چراغ ہم نے جلا رکھا ہے، اور مرتبے حیدر صفدر کو خدا نے بخشے، مرتبے حیدر صفدر کو خدا نے بخشے، ہم پہ الزام یہ ہے ہم نے بڑھا رکھا ہے، جن کی الفت کا چراغ ہم نے جلا رکھا ہے، اور باغ جنت کی تمنا ہے نہ ہے خلد کی چاہ، ہم نے دل روزے سرور سے لگا رکھا ہے، کاظمین اور نجف کرب و بلا اور مشہد، یہاں پہنچ جائیں تو فردوس میں کیا رکھا ہے، شام شہزادی قم سامرا جا کر دیکھو، نور سے خالق اکبر نے سجا رکھا ہے، جن کی الفت کا چراغ ہم نے جلا رکھا ہے، اور قبر میں پوچھیں گے گر آ کے فرشتے مجھ سے، کون سا عطر کفن میں یہ لگا رکھا ہے، کہوں گا خاک شفا تربت شبیر کی ہے، اسی مٹی سے کفن اپنا بسا رکھا ہے، سجدے بھی کرتا ہوں اس پر کبھی رو لیتا ہوں، اس علم نے یہ میرا حال بنا رکھا ہے، جن کی الفت کا فاتحہ۔
سے اٹھا لائے حسین، چاند کو شام کے بادل سے اٹھا لائے حسین، جاں بلب شیر کو جنگل سے اٹھا لائے حسین، دی صدا لاش پسر آن کے لے جا بانو، چھن گیا برچی سے اکبر کا کلیجہ بانو، دیکھ لے آخری دیدار پسر مرتا ہے، سامنے آنکھوں کے یہ نور نظر مرتا ہے، اب کوئی دم تیرا رش کے کمر مرتا ہے، منہ سے باہر ہے زباں تشنا جگر مرتا ہے، دم ہے سینے میں رکا زخموں سے خون جاری ہے، ہائے بانو تیرا گھر لٹنے کی تیاری ہے، پہنچی خیمے میں جو حضرت کی یہ پردرد صدا، مضطرب ہو گئے ناموں سے رسول دو سرا، کہا چلا کے سکینہ نے کہ ہائے ہائے بھائیا، فضا دوڑی سوئے در پھینک کے سر پر سے ردا، پیٹتی زینب مستر نکل آئی باہر، بانو گھبرا کے کھلے سر نکل آئی باہر، شاہ کے کاندھے پہ دیکھا علی اکبر کو نڈھال، ہاتھ پھیلا کے یہ چلائی کہ ہائے ہائے میرے لال، کیا غضب ہو گیا ہے بادشاہ نے خصال، رہا سایہ نہ میرے لال کو 18واں سال، ٹکڑے تیغوں سے بدن ہو گیا سارا، ہے کون تھا جس نے میرے لال کو مارا، ہے رو کے بانوں سے یہ فرمانے لگے سرورے دی، سر نہ پیٹو ابھی زندہ ہے میرا ماہ جمی، سانس آتی ہے پر دم ہے دم پاک پسین، کوچ ان کا بھی ہے اور ہم بھی ہیں مرنے کے قریب، سب چھٹے اب نہ رہا
صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله وعلى أهل بيتك المظلومين صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر لحدي مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ويا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما As I've been doing, I will start with a few narrations on the importance of this zikr and this commemoration. The first one, which is very appropriate actually to the topic of these nights that I've kept, of memory and presence, is from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Where he says, praise is due to God who has placed, who has made amongst people those who actually come to our presence. Those who come to our presence. And they come to our presence by either eulogizing us or reciting elegies for us. So they come to our presence either by reciting our manaqib or by reciting our masajid. This is a very poignant one. This is precisely, in a sense, what I've been trying to say. It encapsulates what I've been trying to say, that these commemorations are very much about creating that presence of the Ahlul Bayt, making us present to them and making them present to us. The second one is a praise of weeping and expressing your grief for the Masa'ib of the Ahlul Bayt. And this is a report from Imam Baqir alayhi salam. In which he says, whoever remembers us, who does our zikr, or in whose presence we are remembered, or in whose presence the zikr is happening. So either they're doing it themselves or they're listening to it. And tears flow from his eyes, even though they may be in the measure of a wing of a mosquito. Tiny, tiny speck. Even if they be in the measure of a wing of a mosquito, God will construct for that person a house in paradise and will make those tears a barrier between him and the hellfire. So that really gives you a sense of just how significant those tears are. Even, as I said, they're a tiny amount. You can barely perceive it, as it says in this hadith, to the measure of a wing of a mosquito. And then the third one, which is a very poignant one, brings me very much to what I want to focus on today. This is also narrated from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. In which he says, the daughter of the Prophet the daughter of the Prophet, Sayyidah Fatima Zahra. She visits those who do the ziyarat of her son Hussein. She goes and visits those who do the ziyarat of her son Hussein. And she seeks forgiveness for their sins. Can you imagine it? Where, our simple act of going to Karbala is reciprocated in this way. So what I want to talk today about is pilgrimage, about ziyarat. And the reason why I want to talk about ziyarat today is because I think it exemplifies the themes that I've been talking about, of memory, of narrative, of presence, of walay. And in particular, it also extends what I've been discussing the last few days about the way in which that presence leads to a certain ethics and indeed to a certain kind of aesthetics. In the way in which ziyarah expresses the character of the zair and tries to encourage a certain character, but also is about a move towards the face of the beauty of the divine. And before I say something more about the ziyarah, and then I'll say a few things about the etiquette of it, it's worth mentioning that the ziyarah to Karbala, but also ziyarah to all of the Ahlul Bayt, is extremely emphasized in our tradition. There are many works which discuss this. The most famous one actually is a work called Kamil al-Ziyarat by Ibn Khulaway. Ibn Khulaway was a student of Kulaini, who compiled Al-Kafi, which is the most important early collection of hadith. And Kamil al-Ziyarat is definitely the earliest, most important collection of hadith, specifically on ziyarah. And it includes everything. It includes ziyarah to the Prophet's tomb in Medina, it includes the ziyarah to Najaf, it includes the ziyarah to all of the Ahlul Bayt. Sayyidah Fatima Zahra is well included. But the biggest part of the work is on ziyarah to Karbala because of its centrality, because everything is in terms of it, because it is that ziyarah which actually makes the whole of the Ahlul Bayt present. That's the really important part. One of the adab, for example, when you are in Karbala, in the Haram of Imam Hussein, is that you recite the ziyarat of all the imams, of the whole of the Ahlul Bayt, because they are all present in Karbala. They are all present in Karbala. And that is an emphasis which is made. So, as I said, there are many texts which are collected in this work on these different ziyarat and the centrality of Imam Hussein. And we're also very familiar with these sayings, which I'm sure everyone has come across, which say that either that going on ziyarah to Imam Hussein in Karbala is the equivalent of doing Hajj 70 times, or more than 70 times. 70 is usually the figure given. And often when people hear this, they become quite astonished, because, one thing that someone objects is that, well, Hajj is something which is incumbent. It has certain conditions, but it's incumbent. Ziyarah is not incumbent, right? Ziyarah is not wajib. There is no marja, no work of fiqh which has ever said that ziyarah is wajib. But we have hadith which say ziyarah is incumbent upon you if you claim to be a lover of the Ahlul Bayt. If you're a lover of the Ahlul Bayt, ziyarah is incumbent upon you. It's not a matter of law, it's a matter of love. That's the important thing. It's a matter of love. It's about how you take that walaya seriously. And so to think about it in those ways, of course it's the equivalent of 17 Hajj. When you actually think about what happens and what it takes out of you to go to Karbala, it is definitely more arduous than going to Hajj. Anyone who's done both, especially if you've been for ziyarah in one of the big dates, munasabat, you will know this is much greater than doing Hajj. It's much more arduous. The other thing, narration which is very important, which is mentioned a lot, and it's a hadith actually of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, is that if a person goes on Hajj, but in the same period does not go for the ziyarah of Imam Hussein in Karbala, he has basically denied the rights of the Prophet on him. It's the Prophet's right upon you that you complete your Hajj by going to Karbala. Because you're going to see the grandson of the Prophet, the one who in many ways fulfilled the mission of the Prophet. And so in that sense, Karbala is the completion of the Hajj. Now, what I want to do is I want to say a few things about what ziyarat is, as it's presented in many of these works which talk about what ziyarat are and the significance of it, what sort of motion it is, what is really happening in this process. Now, one thing, of course, we know is that ziyarat is it's a motion of the body. You make, and I should say that I'm primarily going to be talking about the actual physical ziyarat. I mean, there is also the ziyarat from remote, and as I've said, that there are ways in which we make the Ahlul Bayt present so we can actually affect that ziyarat from a remote place. But we're talking about the actual physical motion because of this constant kind of emphasis that's given in the tradition. I remember many years ago speaking to a good friend of mine, an Iraqi friend in Kuwait, who basically goes every other month. And he said to me, you know, for someone like you who is, you know, relatively well off, living in London, at the very least you should be going to Ziyarat every year. You know, if you have further means, you should probably go at least 3 or 4 times a year. But at least you should go once a year. And you should take your family. Not just yourself, you should take your family, because they need to understand the tradition and the love in which they have been brought up. That they come from that root. And it's a very important thing that you need to instill in yourself, and you need to instill in your family. And then through that, you instill it in your wider community. So try at the very least to go once a year, if you can. Of course, not everyone has the means, but at the most, make an intention. Because if you can make an intention, then surely that intention will be reciprocated, and you will have the possibility of going. So the pilgrimage is a motion of the body, but it's also a motion of the soul and the heart, to link it with what I was saying yesterday, towards the beloved, towards the mahbub. It is an orientation, a tawajjuh, as we would put it, of the pilgrim towards a particular goal. And ultimately, that goal actually is God mediated through the Imam. We have a number of reports about how ziyarah to any of the Ahlul Bayt, but especially to Imam Hussein, is the meeting and encountering of God. Because the shrine of Imam Hussein is a sacred precinct. It is a haram of the harams of the Prophet and of God. It is a precinct, a sacred precinct. It is one of the gardens of paradise, as we've been told. And we have an explicit hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, that someone who does the ziyarah of Imam Hussein in Karbala, it's as if he has done the ziyarah of God on his arsh. That is a very important explanation. And it's also interesting because, of course, we don't see God on his throne. This is not a literal manifestation of anything. But we see the majesty of Hussein in Karbala, which is reflecting what it would mean to encounter God on his throne. And it's about, when you encounter that, it's about awakening that presence and arriving at God. In the state, the Quran talks about this state of encountering God as being the one in which you come to God with a qalbin salim, with a submitting, at peace heart, a heart which is in complete tranquility because of the encounter with God. That is the presence of the Imam in his haram and in his hadra. And there are many other reasons why we would actually do this, encountering God. It's also renewing what we call a covenant, this nifaq that I mentioned right at the beginning of the nights, the covenant that God made with all of us in pre-existence, alastu bi rabbikum, and we all said bala. And so when we make that motion, in the same way that when we go on Hajj, we make that motion towards God as an expression of our remembrance of our pre-historical affirmation. The same thing happens when we go to Karbala. We are expressing our yes, absolutely, labbaik. In fact, as they would say, the reason why labbaik is used in Karbala as it is in Hajj is precisely for that, because you are expressing your fulfillment or your renewal of the covenant, not the fulfillment, the renewal of the covenant. And you are renewing your bay'ah, you're renewing your allegiance to the Imam. This is something that we always do. We're told that we have to always be in a position where we are, we have an allegiance of an Imam on our necks. We have a bay'ah on our necks. And we have to constantly affirm this. And this is, of course, true of the Imam of our time, but it's also true of the whole of the Ahlul Bayt. So by doing their ziyarah, we are engaging in this renewal of pledging allegiance. It's as if when you touch the zali, you are putting your hand on the Imam's hand and giving your bay'ah. And a couple of more points which relate to how the Imam acts as this conduit for the presence of the divine. We have this notion that the Imam, Amir al-Mu'mineen, and the other Imams are the gates to God. They're the gates to God. And there is a very important hadith of Abu Dhar al-Ghifari, the famous companion of the Prophet and also of Amir al-Mu'mineen, who says that once he was in the house of Salama with the Prophet, and they were talking, they were just having a conversation. And Ali came in, and the Prophet's face changed. He became very happy. His eyes were twinkling. He became luminous. He became radiant. He became happy. And he got up and he kissed Amir al-Mu'mineen in the middle of his forehead. He kissed him there. And he said to Abu Dhar, do you know who he is? Do you have proper ma'rifat of who he is? And Abu Dhar said, yes, he's your cousin. He's your cousin. He's your son-in-law. He's the husband of Fatima. He's the father of Hassan and Hussein, who are the masters of the youth of paradise. And the Prophet said, yes, That's not real ma'rifah, you're just saying who he is in terms of his relationship to me. He is the radiant Imam. Al-Imam al-Azhar, he's the term he uses. And he is the long spear of God. And he is the great gate to God. Bab is the word used here. And whoever seeks God has to enter through this gate. Right? So this is the sense of how the presence of the Imam is so directly related to the presence of God. And don't forget, he's saying this to Abu Dhar. In our tradition, Abu Dhar is one of the greatest companions of the Imam. When I was talking about the famous hadith on the Ma'rifat al-Imam al-Nuraniya the other day, that's a conversation Amir al-Mu'mineen has with Abu Dhar and with Salman. In our tradition, they're the two most important companions. They were the companions of the Prophet and the two leading companions of the Imam. And so anything that's said to Abu Dhar has an extra significance because these are significant companions. They're not just any old person who came and saw the Prophet and said these things. And of course, we know that if he had said these things to other people, they wouldn't probably have even reported them because they wouldn't have been the ones who would actually fulfill, keep their amanat, so to speak. The Imams are also the lights of the throne of God. We have many hadith. This is another reason why there is this association of the Dhari, the Haram, with the throne of the Divine. And in that sense, as lights, their shrines are this sort of luminous presence of the Divine. And it's also worth remembering that in the earlier hadith I mentioned, and also in this, the notion of the throne of God, the Arsh, it represents the totality of existence. We have a very famous hadith of Imam Salih alayhi salam, where he says the Arsh is the totality of creation. It's not just like some physical chair type or throne type thing. It's the Arsh is the totality of existence. And so this act of ziyarah then is encounter with light, right? It reminds you again of what I was talking about the other day, the ma'rifah bil-Nuraniya. This is the light. This is that light, that luminous nature of the Imam. And a couple of final points generally about pilgrimage. One is that, of course, by making this orientation, this motion towards the Imam, towards God, you're also making a motion away from everything else. So an act of pilgrimage is also an act of defiance and rejection of everything opposed to the Imam, opposed to God. This is precisely why, people get worried about this, but this is precisely why the ziyarat always contain phrases which curse the enemies of the Imam and the Prophet. Because your motion towards them is a motion away from others. It is a bara'a as much as it is a walaya. You're making an attachment, a devotion, love to the Imam, but you're also rejecting those who are opposed the Imam, and especially those who fought the Imams, and in fact even those who were responsible for their murder. And the final sort of general social point, because so far I've been talking about how this kind of general approach to God, the Imam, is a singular thing. But of course we all know that the biggest aspect of ziyarah that we all experience is that it's a communal process. It's a collective process. People go singly, but usually people go in a group. You go with a family, you go with friends, you go with the community. And that communal pilgrimage is in itself extremely edifying. It teaches you things. It teaches you the importance of things like service. It teaches you the importance of tolerance. It teaches you the importance of hospitality. It teaches you the importance of compassion and giving. Anyone who has been on Al-Rahim in particular will see this at every moment, the way in which people go out of their way to serve you, because you are guests of the Imam and guests of God. So who are we to say anything to that? There is that common aspect. There is a sense in which people help each other. There is hopefully a sense in which people are not bad with each other. Again, I would take the comparisons with Hajj. We know one of the most difficult aspects of Hajj is other people. And yet, what is it about the ziyarat of Imam Hussein that the best thing about the ziyarat is other people? It's the opposite of Hajj. It's completely the opposite of Hajj. You don't have that same sense of people harassing you, people being difficult, people being rude. You know, in Hajj you're told you cannot fight with people. The reason why is because it's very easy. In Ihram you cannot fight people. I have never seen anything on the adab of ziyarah that says don't fight people or don't argue with people. Quite simply because it's not something which arises. You know, these adab which were given down to us from the Ahlul Bayt and from others are based on a very deep understanding of what the nature of human psychology is. You know, what is our nature? So it's very much in concert with that. Now, I want to then extend those general reflections and say something more about the specific adab. And, you know, we've already talked about how the ziyarat is an encounter with God, with the Imam. The ziyarat is an encounter of the light of the Imams and their luminous relationship. The ziyarah is a understanding of their status. So, you know, one of the things that you say in the ziyarah is you always talk about, you know, being in a state of arif and haqq. You know, we recognize your roles. And we recognize, for example, that you are aware of us and you respond. So one of the things that we are told is that the perfection of the Ahlul Bayt's knowledge is that they are entirely aware of their pilgrims. They are entirely aware of their states. They are entirely aware of their darajat. They know that every pilgrim is not the same. And they know how to respond accordingly. They know which pilgrim needs a little nudge, a signal, and they also know the ones who need a lot of help. And they also are perfectly aware of what you are asking for. How many times is it that you go to the Zari and you forget what you want because it's such an overwhelming experience? But you get what you want anyway, because the Imam is perfectly aware of what you have come with, because he is aware of your inner states. So they respond to the Zawar and they give their hearts comfort and illumination. They purify them. They intercede with God. You know, we say we go for Shafa'at, you know, Shafa'at in this world and the hereafter. And we get it regardless of whether we articulate it or not. Because they are that link with God, they are that wasila, they are the salat, as we know. Now, on the particular etiquette, there's a 3-part etiquette I want to mention. There's many other things which can be said, but these are relatively general points. And I'm sure everyone is familiar with them because you've all been familiar with it. But the first one is I'll start with the hadith of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam again. So 3 stages. 1, going to Kaaba. 2nd one, entering Kaaba. 3rd one, entering into the Haram, where the Zayt is. So Imam Sadiq says, when you're on your way, behave as if you're going on Hajj. Multiply your zikr of God. constantly have the zikr of God in your tongues. Speak less, but speak what is good. This is actually generally good advice. Those who speak less, there's a famous hikmah of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ajabullah, which is, a person is hidden under his tongue, which is basically the more you talk, the more you reveal your faults. So speak less. And when you speak what is good. Be humble. Pray often. So not just what you have to pray, but pray even more than what you have to pray. Send many salawat. Refrain from things which you know are haram. Help your fellows and be a good companion. Again, the common thing. Do not fight, do not squabble. Don't take oaths. If possible, walk. And then, of course, the standard things, as you get closer, do also wear clean clothes, wear perfume. And part of this is also about that, we know that when you do an act of tahara for yourself, it's part of an intention for something else. It's not just the physical thing of washing yourself, but it's also you intend to be in a pure state so you can be something else. So that's before you get to Karbala. When you get to Karbala, have sadness and grief in your heart. Move towards the Haram in the state you are, covered in dust and disheveled. Go straight, covered in dust and disheveled, weeping and holding the sanctity of the land in your heart, grieving. The last thing is go into the Haram, preferably in a state of being hungry and thirsty. And then when you are in the Haram, look at the Zari. Look, of course, first at the Zari of the companions, and then look at the Zari of the Imam, and make present in your mind and in your heart their story, their Masa'ib, what happened. Recount them musibah one by one, if possible. So that the whole of Karbala becomes present for you. Make Imam Hussein and then present in your heart. And then also do the ziyarah of all the Imams and make them also present in your heart. Feel the grief and cry. Stay there crying. Yet that does not mention ask your desires, but it's given that you will. But it's also understood that you may not remember. So make the intention before. And then it says at the end, when you have done all this, when you have made the Imam, etc., his companions, all the Ahlul Bayt present, leave. Don't settle. This because it's very difficult staying in Karbala for a period of time. It's very difficult, and there's a recognition, the Imam knows this, it's heavy on you. It's much easier living and staying in Najaf or Kavanina for days and days. Staying in Karbala for days is very heavy. It's very difficult to do that. So it's a recognition that you should go. Now, when we go into, just to kind of draw the picture a bit more, so you enter, as we normally do nowadays, especially for the men, you enter from the Sahan. First thing you can on the right is the big zari of the Ashra. In front of you, you see the zari of Habib ibn Wadhid, who you will normally see when you leave. You go inside, and there you have your zari of the Muslim. And when you see the zari, one thing which always comes to my mind, I assume always comes to other people's minds as well, is the famous thing that there were three who buried in that. There is Imam himself, On his chest is buried a baby, and by his feet is buried his son. And as you come outside, after you have visited, you see the Habib ibn Batah who acts as he's checking and he's recording who is coming into his door. And then when you go out, behind Habib, you see another grave of a famous Imam Zadi, Ibrahim al-Bujab. You go outside, in the corner behind Ibrahim al-Bujab's, there is a zari on the outside, a small zari, and you can see inside there's a room with red light. The room is empty. And that, of course, is the Qatulga. And that, in some ways, is the heaviest and saddest place in whole Haram. Because it's not where the Imam is, but you know there is another presence which is there. So, that is just the image, the picture, which I wanted to remind you of what's happening in Zali. So come back to the feet of the Imam. And come back to Ali Akbar, who, in the words of Wazirat al-Nahiya al-Muqaddisa, the Imam of our time says, As-salamu ala Akbar al-Kabir. If you remember what I was saying a few days ago, that God created the light and split the light equally. One was the light of Ali and the other one was the light of Muhammad. And in Karbala, Ali Akbar represented both. He represented the beauty of the light of the Prophet, and he represented the beauty of the light of Ali. That's why he was called Ali. This is why on the morning of Ashra, the Imam chose him to give the adhan. No one else. He was chosen because he represented the total light of Ali and Muhammad. And it's also why they treated Ali the worst. Because his name was Ali, because they had this great hatred. Karbala is about nasab, it's about people who bared enmity and hatred for Amir al-Mu'minin. And of course, we know about the way in which Ali Akbar represented, manifest the beauty of the Prophet. When he asked for permission and he went out, and he was the first of the Banu Hashim who went out to fight, the Imam raised his hands in prayer and he said, God, bear witness that the young man who is now going to fight is the one who best resembles in his appearance, in his character and his speech, your messenger. And that whenever we desired to see the Prophet, we would gaze upon his face. Just imagine how that must have been for those who saw it. For the Imam, for his mother Layla, for his aunt Zainab, for everyone who saw Ali Akbar going out in battle, a young man. And then, of course, Ali Akbar famously recited the Rajas, his poetry as he went into battle. أنا علي بن الحسين بن علي من عصبة جد أبي النبي والله يعلم لا يحكم فينا ابن الدعي. You know, oh God, you know, verily this son of an unchaste woman will not decide our fate. He's talking about Ibn Ziyad. أطعنك بالرمح حتى ينتهي أضربك بالسيف أحمي عن أبي. I will strike you protecting my father. ضرب غلام هاشمي علوي. Just like Hazrat Qasim did, he said, this is the striking of a young Hashimi Alawi boy, a young man. And he fought valiantly, and he sent many to hell. But like many others, he was thirsty. And at one point he stops fighting and he comes back to his father and says, you know, Father, I am very thirsty. Is there any way, just a tiny bit of water? And in one riwayah, the Imam gives him his ring. He gives him the ring of his grandfather, the Prophet, and says, just hold this ring in your mouth, maybe it will cool you for a short period. But also, don't forget, just wait a bit more, and your grandfather will quench your thirst, after which you will never be thirsty. So after this, Ali Akbar goes back into the battlefield, and again he says, أنا علي لا أقول كذبا أتبع جدي المصطفى مهذبا أضربك بالسيف المعجمة ضرب غلام لا يريد الحرب. You know, I am again Ali, I do not tell lies, I follow my grandfather, the Prophet. I strike unceasingly with this sword, and I strike you. The striking of a young man who is not fleeing, he is moving forward towards you. And he continued to fight and scatter the forces until they realized that the only way to deal with this young man was to surround him. So they surrounded him from all sides. And one day when Walm came, may God curse him, came and struck him on his head. He struck him on his head, another person struck him with a spear. And as he swayed on his horse, they attacked him mercilessly from all sides, all the swords striking at the same time so much that they cut him to pieces. It says, Erba and Erba, they cut him with the sword all around. And Ali Akbar cried out, Father, my salam to you, Assalamu alaikum ya Batala. My grandfather has the cup ready to quench my thirst. And my grandfather, Ali and Muhammad, and my grandmothers, Khadija and Fatima, are ready to receive me. But they're also looking forward to receiving you. And so in response, the Imam attacked, and he scattered the forces. And he took Akbar's head in his lap, and he says, "Ala dunya ba'daka al-afaf." You have left this world for what is better. You have left behind your father who hastens to join you. In one of the reports, it said that the grief of Akbar was so great that the Imam became temporarily blind, and he did not know where he was going. And he could not lift, he could not bear the weight of his body. And so he called the children of Banu Hashim, and he said, come and help take the body of your brother back to the camp. And when of course he took the body back to the camp, Sakina came out and says, where is my brother Ali? وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون.
कहती थी ये माँ हूँ भरी मैयत से लिपट कर है अली अकबर है कैसा था मुक़द्दर है अली अकबर है अली अकबर 18 बरस पाल के परवान चढ़ाया वो गेसुओं वाला मेरा खून में नहाया क्या हो गया दिल पर है अली अकबर है अली अकबर पहले तो एक आवाज़ पे उठ जाते थे बेटा अब इतनी सदाओं पे भी पहलू नहीं बदला क्या हो गया दिल पर है अली अकबर है अली अकबर तुम हिज्जियाँ लेके जो दम तोड़ रहे हो मुम्मा से हमेशा के लिए मोड़ रहे हो क्यों रूठे हो दिल पर है अली अकबर है अली अकबर जब कोई जवा लाश नजर आती है महशर एक याद सुए करबो बला जाती है महशर दिल रोता है कहकर है अली अकबर है अली अकबर माँ तेरी जुदाई में भला कैसे जिएगी मर जाएगी सुगरा जो खबर तेरी सुनेगी अब क्या करूं जी कर है अली अकबर है अली अकबर
वक्ति रुखसत बाप को बेटे का मुड़ कर देखना हाय 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 वक्ति रुखसत बाप को बेटे का मुड़ कर देखना हाय 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 करबला 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 अब इंतहाई सब्र सरवर देखना हाय हाय کا مڑ کر دیکھنا دور تک جاتے ہوئے دیکھا کہ یہ کیسے حسین ہو کرے کھا کھا کے خود سنبھلا کہ یہ کیسے حسین اے علی اکبر ذرا پیچھے پلٹ کر دیکھنا ہائے 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 وقت رخصت باپ کو بیٹے کا مڑ کر دیکھنا ماں کے ارمانوں کی چادر کا امامہ سر پہ ہے فاطمہ صغرا کی آنکھوں کا اجالا سر پہ ہے بگڑے گا ایک پل میں کتنوں کا مقدر دیکھنا ہائے 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 وقت رخصت باپ کو بیٹے کا مڑ کر دیکھنا دوش پر بکھری ہوئی زلفیں اڑاتی تھی ہوا بکھری زلفوں سے نکھرتی جا رہی تھی کربلا موت کی جرات نہیں تھی آنکھ بھر کر دیکھنا ہائے 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 وقت رخصت باپ کو بیٹے کا مڑ کر دیکھنا ہائے 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 اٹھ رہا ہے گر رہا ہے ایک ہی پردہ بار بار ام لیلا کا یہ خیمہ اے میرے پروردگار لاش جب آئی تو مر جائے گی مادر دیکھنا ہائے 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 وقت رخصت باپ کو بیٹے کا مڑ کر دیکھ ہائے مقتل گھٹنیوں کے بل چلا ہے ایک پدر کہتا ہے آواز دے مجھ کو میرے نور نظر کھو گئی بینائی میری میرے دل پر دیکھنا ہائے 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 وقت رخصت باپ کو بیٹے کا مڑ کر دیکھنا اے حسین ابن علی جاؤ نہ اکبر کے قریب ظلم ایسا ہو گیا ہے اب لا سکتے نہیں کیا گوارا ہے سینے کے اندر دیکھنا ہائے 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 وقت رخصت باپ کو بیٹے کا مڑ کر دیکھنا امتحان ہے بوڑھے کاندوں پر جواں بیٹے کی لاش خون میں ڈوبی کس طرح دیکھے گی ماں بیٹے کی لاش اس جگہ اولاد والوں خود کو رکھ کر دیکھنا ہائے 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 مرتے دم اکبر کو ڈر ہے مان آ جائے کہیں بہ رہا ہے خون میرے سینے سے رنگی ہے زمین کہہ دو اماں سے مجھے یوں نہ تڑپ کر دیکھنا ہائے 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 باتیں رخ سد باپ کو بیٹے کا مڑ کر دیکھنا. بابا میری ماں میرے غم کو اٹھا سکتی نہیں, نیند ایسی آ رہی ہے ماں جگا سکتی نہیں. زخم میرا ماں کی نظروں سے بچا کر دیکھنا. ہائے 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 ہائے, وقت رخ زد باپ کو بیٹے کا مڑ کر دیکھنا. ہائے 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 ہائے.
میرا سحر والا اکبر, میرا سحر والا اکبر, تو میرا سحر والا اکبر, میرا سحر والا اکبر, میرا سحر والا اکبر, میرا سحر والا اکبر. زخم دل کے دکھاؤں میں کیسے, زخم دل کے دکھاؤں میں کیسے, تیرا لاشا اٹھاؤں میں کیسے. اکبر میرا سحر والا اکبر, اکبر میرا سحر والا اکبر. لاش اکبر پہ شاہ جب پہنچے, دل کو ہاتھوں سے تھام کر بولے, تیری فرقت میں علی اکبر, آگ دل میں میرے لگا دی ہے, آگ دل کی بجھاؤں میں کیسے, آگ دل کی بجھاؤں میں کیسے, تیرا لاشا اٹھاؤں میں کیسے. اکبر میرا سحر والا اکبر, اکبر میرا سحر والا اکبر. جس نے 18 سال پالا تھا, کیسے دیکھے کہ وہ تیرا لاشا, تیری شادی کا تھا جسے ارماں, کیسے جھیلے کہ وہ تیرا صدمہ. تیری ماں کو بتاؤں میں کیسے, تیری ماں کو بتاؤں میں کیسے, تیرا لاشا اٹھاؤں میں کیسے. اکبر میرا سحر والا اکبر, اکبر میرا سحر والا اکبر. تو ہے کڑیل جوان اے بیٹا, باپ تیرا غریب ہے کتنا, نور آنکھوں کا ہو گیا رخصت, اس کو آتا نہیں نظر خیمہ, لے کے خیموں میں جاؤں میں کیسے, لے کے خیموں میں جاؤں میں کیسے, تیرا لاشا اٹھاؤں میں کیسے. اکبر میرا سحر والا اکبر, اکبر میرا سحر والا اکبر. بھائی بہنوں کا ہے عجب رشتہ, جس کا ثانی کہیں نہیں ملتا, روکے صغرا نے یہ لکھا اکبر, ایک دکھیا علاج رکھ لینا. مر گیا تو بتاؤ میں کیسے, مر گیا تو بتاؤ میں کیسے, تیرا لاشا اٹھاؤں میں کیسے. اکبر میرا سحر والا اکبر, اکبر میرا سحر والا. نبی دیاں اکھیاں دا ہے نور, نبی دیاں اکھیاں دا, زہرا دے دل دا چین, یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام, یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام.
Assalamu alaikum. I would like to recite one line of poetry in Farsi in memory of Hazrat Ali Akbar alayhi salam. This is from the perspective of Imam Hussein. It says, Jawanan Bani Hashim, Bia, all the youth of Bani Hashim, come. Ali la ta sar khayme rasan. Carry Ali Akbar to the tent. Khuda danad ke man taqat nadaram. God knows that I don't have the heart for it. Ali ra ta sar khayme rasan. To carry Ali to the tent. So I'll just sing it as well. جوانان بنی هاشم بیایید علی را تا سر خیمه رسانی خدا داند که من طاقت ندارم علی را تا سر خیمه رسانم. صلوات. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا نبي الله. السلام عليك يا خاتم النبيين وسيد المرسلين. السلام عليك وعلى ابنتك فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك وعلى وصيك وخليفتك أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب. السلام عليك وعلى ولديك الحسن والحسين سيدا شباب أهل الجنة. السلام عليكم وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب الزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا قاطع البرهان. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. السلام عليك وعلى آبائك الطيبين وأجدادك الطاهرين المعصومين ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا.
اللهم
تحفظ سید معد شهرستانی مرحوم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم.